Hey everybody, this is Talkative Carl back again for another comic book review. And uh, I know I already done a Spider-Man comic review, some time ago, which you can still check out on the channel. As I say it, back then, I came across it just by happenstance, and I figured like I want to do something I don't think anybody ever covered on a Spider-Man thing. Thought it was unique, fun, and did that. So check that out too. This, I'm going to cover Spider-Man, the Amazing Spider-Man arc coming home, issues 30 through 35, written by J. Michael Straczynski, and art by John Romita Jr. or penciled, I should say. And yeah, when it comes to like Marvel, I'm going to try as much as I can because I know like last week or week and a half ago, I did the Thor run, which is getting a lot of reviews. So thank you all for checking that out. Covering the arc where Thor met up, battled Gore the God Butcher. Just make sure I get that out in time for Thor: Love and Thunder. And in hell, it's already May. It's gonna be May. In a month from now. And of course, shoot, I nearly forgotten. In a few days from now, at the time of me, I'm live right now. It's May 2nd officially, and in a few days I'll be going to the movies to see Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So by Saturday, I will have a full spoiler review of that film as well. But the Spider-Man comic book reviews, I am proceeding, whenever like I have the time, because right now, I'm going through a walkthrough of Marvel Ultimate Alliance on a 360, as far as the walkthrough is concerned. But besides that, right now, video game walkthrough is going to be like a little dry. Going to be on like a dry spell for a little bit, which is fine. It gives me more time to do things like this, movie and comic book reviews. Every once in a while, I'll pop in for a video game to play. But yeah, we go covering like each universe Spider person. Not everyone, but like the core stuff for the Spider-Verse movie that has apparently been moved to next spring, which is fine. This is fine. It's not that I'm a huge Spider-Man fan at all or anything like that, but it's fine. Get it right just to get it right. So I'm covering Peter Parker version this time, the main 616 version. Next time, God, it's a toss-up between I won't be doing like Miles Morales or Spider-Man Noir arcs. It might be Miles Morales. And then go through Spider-Man Noir, Spider-Gwen, Spider-Ham, Spider-Man 2099. And might be forgetting somebody, but I think that's one we covering just to cover the key core. I want to do like there should be like a Spider-Man manga where it's like a pretty much like an anime universe based off the Marvel people. I gotta look that up because I want to take care of that, because there is a Penny Parker in this in a Marvel Comics universe, but she doesn't have her own little issue run. Unfortunately, she's seen it in a panel of another. You see her universe in a couple of panels in a or pages in somebody else's comic book, but she doesn't have her own little thing. So I'll just do like manga Spider-Man in her stead. So I'm gonna cover all those in the preceding year. At least like once a month or once every couple of months, just to make sure I have like the core of the Spider-Verse. Anywho, the Amazing Spider-Man Coming Home arc. Right now we're going over Spider-Man's Well, first I want to note that out of all the art, because there's two artists in like comics in general that I love their art to death. I mean, like, it's just the way they draw the characters. John Romita Jr. and Jim Lee. Two of my favorite comic book artists of all time. I just love looking, at their work. It's not. It's just realistic enough where it's not like, odd looking. Because like in the Thor, God of Thunder arc with dealing with Gold the God Butcher, I mentioned how like the art is cool, but it's just like it looks odd in certain places. This is just like, maybe it just harkens back to John Romita Jr. Because like he did a lot in the '90s, so maybe that's why I enjoy his work. Because I think he did Spawn as well. Because you get like like the images right here, you get certain like kind of like details to the face that harkens to certain characters in Spawn comics. So maybe this like hits my '90s nostalgia is probably why I like his art. Because I probably read, the fair bit of comics that I read as a little kid, it's probably the bulk of it was from him that I probably did not notice. Anywho, Peter Parker at this current time, because so many years and so many different like iterations of Spider-Man, not iterations I should say, but it's just like every once in a while, anybody who handles Spider-Man, they, at least for the large part, not everybody, wants to put Peter Parker in a situation where he's on the outs or near the outs with Mary Jane Watson. Currently, right now, she's off in California because she's a model and everything like that, and she got tired of picking and choosing. Wants to be able to have like a solid relationship with Peter without Spider-Man stuff getting in the way, and it's been like that for a lot of times. And I don't think it's the writers themselves, but just the mandate above them who always puts Peter Parker in a position like we cannot make him like, because we don't want to age him out kind of situation. And we cannot let our readers feel like, oh, they make them feel old if we see Spider-Man be old. And it's just like, it's the same thing with like Batman and Spider-Man. It's like, I think they allow, and Superman, I should say, Superman and Batman. But I think they a little bit more leeway with Superman by allowing him to marry Lois Lane and have a child. But for the longest part, it took them a very long time for them to even get to that point with him. And they played it with our hearts and toyed with us with Batman and Catwoman and just marry him to Catwoman. It's like, because there's no way he's going with Talia al Ghul, and Catwoman's the only other best candidate to be like, like a solid connection. And it just drives me freaking bonkers because Mary Jane and Peter Parker, Selena Kyle and Batman, Lois Lane and Superman, these in particular characters, there's no other person they fit well with, with another person. They match almost perfectly. They always in sync with each other. And it just drives me crazy. It's just like these particular three, at least these particular three, have to have like a solid relationship. And that is just a natural progression of the character. You can tell stories with these people while they're in a significant relationship. Like, it was a whole thing. It's so stupid. I don't know what's going on with like the mandates. Like, honestly, how many people care? I mean, like, if you want a young Peter Parker, there's thousands upon thousands of comics they can read. They can easily be pointed to for them to read to have their young Peter Parker that's not in a serious relationship. But at this point in time, you gotta have it, and you can always tell like different like universe or like one-off stories, whereas that's not the case. But in the main continuity, by this point in time, it has to be the thing. Same thing with Batman. It has to be. They have to be in a significant relationship by this point. It's no way around that. Anyway, before I even begin any further, I want to give a nice shout out to my recent subscribers on YouTube. You guys are amazing. It's like this. Just recently went up over 212 subscribers. So you guys are just are amazing. Thank you. You're amazing. You're spectacular. You're ultimate. You're sensational. Uh, Palm Hernandez, Sergio, guy has a name. Just wake up. Wow. I mean, is that like a thing with me when it's like because there's been times in videos that I felt like I was falling asleep on you guys, and I'm like, is that just like a thing to me? Mr. Infinity Sky. So yeah, thank you all for those recent subscribers. You guys are just phenomenal. And anybody who's been recently following me on Twitch as well. That's twitch.tv/talkativecarl. And of course here on YouTube, that's youtube.com/talkativecarl. All the links are in the description. And you can follow me on Instagram as well, where I post whenever I have like new stuff aboard. Anywho, at this point in time, Peter is just like, he's jobless. He, Mary Jane is gone, and like he feels like he just got like he doesn't have anybody except Aunt May. Even then, he feels like because at this point in time, she doesn't know he's Spider-Man, so he feels bad that he has to lie to her half the time because he has to go out and be Spider-Man. And so at this point, he just like wants to go. He goes to this construction site that's, tend to be like the next day to be demolished. And so he just goes there to just vent. And I like this because you rarely get to see Spider-Man completely unload. And I think this is one of those few arcs where you get to finally see Spider-Man unload his significant power and strength. And the same thing with Superman. It's like, I remember in Justice League Unlimited, I'm pretty sure it was Unlimited. Yeah, it was Justice League Unlimited, where Darkseid, the TV show, Darkseid came to Earth to try to take over, and while Justice League, and even some of the villains try, go in different spots around the world to stop all these, parademons and all this other stuff from attacking each part of the world, while Superman takes on Darkseid. And it's this awesome point in the scene where it's like an awesome line coming from Superman, where it's like, where he just, just mollywops Darkseid, and he just says, I feel like I live in a world made of cardboard. To be careful not to break, something, to break someone. But you can take it, can you, big man? What we have here is a perfect opportunity to show you just how powerful I really am. And he just goes full, just full on Superman. And that's probably not even his like peak power, because he's powered by solar radiation. Kryptonians can get significantly powerful when they're solar charged and just be allowed to just unleash. And it's like you get to see like something like Spider-Man, where he is allowed to just unleash without endangering anybody, and he just like collapse an entire building by himself. So yeah, while he's dealing with that, he didn't realize it was like 12 hours went by, and he like it's daytime, and so he leaves out as a foreman comes in and is like, like just get ready to demolish this place, and then the whole thing comes crumbling down, and it's like lunch. They're like, that's lunch. That was really funny. So like, Peter at this point just wanna he's walking down the street, and he just like on instinct, he's just visiting his old haunts, and you see flashbacks of him like his nerdy self back then. And this is where like you see like images of Gwen Stacy and like Flash Thompson, and like at this like local diner, and like him being teased, and flashback in the present day while he's trying to order some food. And it's amazing sometimes how like many times that he barely has like two pains to rub together, but he's able to afford food and get a place of his own. And it's like maybe he has some stuff saved up, but it's just like okay, you gotta maybe some residuals from the pictures he gave to J. Jonah Jameson. It's like every time one of his pictures being showed in certain places, he gets some kind of thing. Maybe that's the case. I don't know. It's just amazing he's able to afford a burger, let alone like get a place of his own, which he had to recently move into. Then he goes by his old high school, which he's recalling getting picked on, and then he flashes to present day and he sees a nerd getting picked on by some bullies, and like and this is like older Peter Parker, which that's why I love the Spider-Man PlayStation game and the Miles Morales game, because this is older, experienced Peter Parker who is more as much as he gives crap about his life as Spider-Man, it gave him the confidence that he needed in the world that he lacked as a kid. And it was like the more knowledgeable and like the experience and like despite the good and the bad stuff that he had to deal with, it helped him grow as a person. And he walks up to these bullies and like is there a problem here? Because he want to step in. It's like he refuses, because it obviously gets to him every time he sees a kid getting picked on, because he sees himself in that kid. And it's like, and who's ever been picked on, I've been picked on, and like I don't like bullies because I've been bullied a lot as a kid. Not fun. And it's like, as you can see later on, you can see what kind of stuff it leads to. But then the kid, you can't begrudge the kid, because he says like, well, thanks a lot. Now they're going to be picking on me 2 times worse in next time. And it's like, it's not that he's obviously not being ungrateful. He's a hurt kid who's, because this is high school, a lot of these kids, their body chemistry and hormones are like all over the place, and they can like, compartmentalize or appreciate the nuance of what is being done. All they feel is just hurt right now. Because we've been there. It's like, a teacher steps in and stops the immediate, threat. But it doesn't like mean like, the bully's going to stop. And which is really effed up, which is probably why we got like anti-bullying and all that other stuff, throughout the past like, decade and some change. And then you see this like, this schmuck, this gym teacher, what is his name? Like, because you only seen him at least a couple of times throughout this entire arc. It's like Kyle Jacoby. Kyle Jacoby. It's pretty much like, that's the way it is. Some kids just like him got like either like adapt or die kind of situation. And it's like. And it's like, this is like a school where Peter used to go to, which was like a different shape back when he was going, but now it's kind of like, it's like you ever watch like inner city, like watch a movie, like especially in the 90s and early 2000s, like high schools in the inner city, type of in a scene in a movie. It kind of looks like that, whereas like it's like graffitis all over the place and everything like that. And so Peter decides, okay, he's staking out in the neighborhood, and it's those same bullies try to carjack a vehicle, and he jumps down and gives them a scare and everything like that. And all of a sudden, as he's like, chilling, some dude clinging to the walls like him, and it's like, and it's like, hey, what's up, Peter? I was like, who the fuck is you? And how the fuck you know my name? You know, before I get into that, kudos to John Romita Jr. because I, for some reason, I just love the way when he draws Spider-Man, it's always him hanging from a bunch of web threads, or him clinging to web in some way, shape, or form when he's like, even like leaning on the side of the building or something like that. It's always like just strands of webbing like clinging to him, and it's like I just love to look at that. I don't know why, I just do. I always want to see Spider-Man like that in some way, shape, or form. But we meet this guy named Ezekiel, and Ezekiel is just like, cause it's like a funny little thing. It's like kudos to JMS. He's just pretty much like, it's like I know what you're thinking. Well, metaphorically anyway. Am I friend or foe? And as he's sitting there doing like this, like, just acrobatic moves, very Spider-Man like. And he sounds like, my name is Ezekiel. And sorry about it. I know this whole secret identity thing, so I'm just gonna call you P. Still the same thing. Don't say the P word. Uh, 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 and he's just like, dropping, these like cryptic little lines, basically asking him, okay, basically trying to, because like, I snuck up on you. Obviously, I'm not a danger because your spider sense didn't, set off. Because I got the same thing. So, we're not like a danger to each other. And he asked Peter, how did you get your powers? Peter, and he's like, don't lie to me because I know you'll lie to me. Because his powers, his spider sense kind of like, because he's like uses spider powers to like, build this, glorious business for himself. So it's like, it's attuned to different kind of things than Spider-Man built his powers towards. So he's able to tell if somebody's probably lying by tuning into like a particular frequency. Maybe Spider-Man can easily do that himself if he practiced, but kind of like Daredevil level. But anyway, Peter tells him like, I got bit by a radioactive spider, and Ezekiel says like, did you ever run an autopsy on the spider? Like, no. It died immediately. It got squished and died immediately after. I never got even a chance. And he goes off saying that, that spider could have already was going to you regardless of the radiation that it got bombarded with. Because, it's part of this, spider totem, this kind of legacy thing. And, Peter thinking this guy's a kook. I was like, chose me, like, but it's like he, Ezekiel goes off saying like, well, I'm gonna leave you to ponder that. I gotta go, and then and he disappeared, and it's like it's wild, and like Peter's like doesn't know what the hell is going on at this point, and this guy just randomly pops up out of freaking nowhere and had me question everything about my origin story. Then we at the end of the issue, we get the big bad of the arc, Morlun, which will eventually get into the Spider-Verse, mega events after I go through like each, different iteration of Spider-Man, at least the core members, and we meet Morlun, this energy vampire, and his like this versions of Renfield named Dex, who it's kind of very like a typical modern day kind of vampire story where like this creepy boat coming through the harbor, and Dex is paying off this harbor master to look the other way as they come in. and there's this German superhero chained up in like the hole, in the hole, and Borlun is feeding off his energy until the point he's dead, just to keep himself rejuvenated until he gets ready to go on the hunt for Spider-Man. In case you don't know who Morlun is, we'll go over the Inheritors when we get to the Spider-Verse event. But basically, Morlun's part of the Inheritors, this group of kind of like Court of Owls, Illuminati type of society. It's like only like a handful of members who goes after these animal totems, and in each they go to different universes to hunt down each version of a particular animal theme individual. And there's been certain comics where it's like, they go after different Black Panthers, and in this case they go after all these different versions of Spider-Man, a lot of them. And once we get to the Spider-Verse event, you'll see like quite a few of them die. And there's this panel I still remember, and it's kind of like give me a pit in my stomach when I saw it, where it's like all those the other Spider-Man that never made it, that's been killed off screen or off panel, they really have their carcass on like this big serving plate in the middle of this dining table, and you hear one of them still kind of alive. It's like moaning, and like one of them's like, "Quiet, meat sack." It's like, so there's quite a few dark moments in this event that we'll get into. But yeah, so these Inheritors are pretty much like this. They look like vampires, but they got like entirely different weaknesses. They're not traditional vampires as we've seen like blade fights. These guys got the same abilities, but they don't die in sunlight. They still gotta cover up in sunlight because it's still like they're sensitive to it. But they don't feed off blood traditionally. It's like they drink blood, sure, but they feast off of the particular energy source that they need to sustain themselves. At least one can sustain himself for at least a good 100 years, as they mention in this arc. So, in the next issue, as like Peter is like getting fed eggs by Aunt May, she helped like facilitate getting him some work, and she kind of sort of nudged him into the right direction and getting him, putting in a word for him to get an interview at that same school he went to as a teacher. And at this point in time, they are like struggling to find teachers that's good at their particular craft. In this particular case, they need a science teacher. So Peter goes back to the school, and on his way there, because Dex and Morlun is like at like a diner or like a cafe, and Morlun spots Spider-Man swinging by, like nearby, and he just gives him he doesn't want a hunt just yet. He's kind of like playing with his food kind of situation. And well, at least Morlun's in his particular case, he does not like harbor any ill will. He's just doing it. He's kind of like Galactus. It's like he's doing it because he has to live. It's just like typical any decent vampire. It's like he's doing it because he has to live. He doesn't harbor any kind of like ill will, But in some most vampire cases, they kind of lean into that and like give themselves fully to like the monster inside of them. So he gives Peter this glance, and like Spider-Man Spider Sense just blast, and it's like he freaks out, and he starts scurrying underneath like the a building, like one of those like balconies, and he's scurrying underneath a building like a spider getting frightened by something threatening, and trying to get out of reach. And it's like Peter, and the Peter is forefront of his consciousness in a sense, like, okay, why I'm scurrying right there? It's like I gotta get to this interview. Like, there's nothing dangerous, nothing's around me. Like, why I'm freaking out? And it's like he just like, yes, his body just tells him to stay here, and because he says like it's like everything about my body is screaming hide. Like every cell in my body wants me to just stay here, hide, and he doesn't know why. And it's so it's so freaky too. And it's like he's telling himself, he's kind of trying to psych himself into moving, and he's like, okay, I'm just gonna swing out of here, nothing's around me, I'm fine, I don't see anybody. But it's like then he's like, okay, I'm gonna just crawl, and he starts crawling very carefully and slowly. And then he's like, and you fast forward to this to the school where he's getting ready to like fill out some paperwork for the job. And then all of a sudden there's an active school shooting, school shooter starting like a automatic rifle, and start like blasting in the school. And everybody's freaking out, and this is like probably triggering, no pun intended, those who have been in like an active shooting kind of ordeal. And I was just horrible, and like we've been dealing with that kind of stuff since like Sandy Hook, unfortunately, with like being like putting like some guidelines, and or at least trying to make it harder for just anybody to just grab a gun, especially if they're not stable. And at first you will think it's the same kid who got picked on that Peter met earlier, but it turns out to be a different kid who got picked on. And you can see how like bothersome this like problem is, where it's like the school is getting worse, and you got these like bullies is constantly harassing kids that are just inherently weaker than them. And thanks, and like there's a cool part where it's like Peter utilized this kid named Joey who he helped with those bullies. And he's getting all these kids, at least as much as he could, like that he saw scurrying into the science lab. And I like these few panels here where it's like he utilizing his speed and stuff just to corral enough people into the science lab to get them away from like the gunfire. And it's like he knows like certain bullets come by because he's faster, and the senses and everything like that. And he's like corralling them out of the way. And it's like it's kind of like with Batman. And it's like Batman Forever. If you watch my spoiler review of that movie on the channels, I mentioned it there, where it's like, depending on the freaking situation, how dire it is, Spider-Man mentions like, I don't give a damn about my secret identity. There's time for that, and there's time to like save me. And these are a bunch of kids and like a fucking active school shooting right now. Fuck my secret identity. I need to get these people to safety. And it's like he doesn't even care. And it's like the only thing that's important right now is saving these people. And it's like with Batman and Batman Forever, it's like if it wasn't for the crowd getting all crazy, he was willing to stand up and was like, I'm Batman. Because like he give a crap about a secret identity when like this level of a danger is at foot here. There's no way around it, and he doesn't care. And it's like he's always Spider-Man. Just like Bruce Wayne is always Batman. No matter what suit he has on, he will do what he has to. And so he's talking with Joey, especially one of the these other kids like, you know, uh, you know, give him like a hard time, like when he's confused and he's worried and everything like that, and the other kids tell him like shut up and like all this stuff, and then Peter of course like stuff saying like, hey, you're Joey, right? Yeah, I'm going to need your help here. We gotta like you're pretty good. I heard you're pretty good at chemistry. And like the other kids like, what are you asking him for? And Peter, you be quiet. I'm not talking to you. Hey, you see those chemicals over there? Do you know how to make like a smoke bomb? I was like, yeah. It's like, okay, I will need you to put all that together and dump it into the air vents. And like he gives Joey the signal as he's hopping right there because he needs until he hops in the hallway because he needs like the cover of the cloud so he can change it to Spider-Man and try to stop the shooter. And just like and then given like kudos to Peters like giving this kid like the must need confidence boost and have him like become like a help like a school hero. But then like after talk with that gym teacher again after like one of the science teacher quits immediately after the whole ordeal, it's like that's it, I'm done. Like he's like hauling ass out there. It's like he's just fed up. He can't deal with like it's like the last straw for him. And so Peter decides, okay, I'm gonna step in. Damn what like this Jacobsy guy said, just because apparently he just gave up. And it's like I know there's certain teachers like that in the world. They probably shouldn't be teachers, or at least know what they're in for, or at least 100% sure if they believe in like trying to make things better for these kids. Peter decides, I'm gonna try to make these kids' lives better and like give them an appreciation of science, trying to improve their lives. And so that's when he steps in to be like the school science teacher. Now I talked with a group of friends. It's like at least a couple of years ago at this point. It was like way before like the pandemic, where I mentioned how like because it was like during this arc right after Doc Ock took over Peter Parker's body during that whole ordeal. Then Peter Parker got it back, and since Doc Ock started up a company, Parker Industries, and Peter took over, he was able to like pretty much be like the like a downgraded version of Tony Stark in a way, to the point where he can utilize his smarts in order to help make like a better world, like using like his expertise and help bringing in like certain people who has been in jail that has like the brilliance. I forgot this villain's name, but there's a whole arc with him, but giving him like a fresh start and like and building this pretty cool tech of a new Spider-Man suit, which I played on the Spider-Man PS4 game a couple of times because I love the look of that suit. I actually love that arc. You let Spider-Man, because I think that's a natural progression, because you forget Spider-Man is a fucking genius. And it'd be a crying shame not to have him go to the point where he's able to have his own, not like the same level as maybe like Tony Stark, obviously. He's not on that same level of genius, but like, fairly close to. And he should be able to utilize that, to start up a tech company. And some guys didn't agree, where it's like they prefer him as like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, being like a teacher or something like that. That's cool too, but it's just like I don't think it's been done where like Spider-Man actually had a significant time, or at least let him be like a freaking scientist, like running like a company. It's like I think that's a natural progression. I don't know about you guys. Leave a comment below if you prefer teacher Spider-Man or tech company Spider-Man, because I think tech company Spider-Man is like a dope evolution of Peter Parker, and it's like, so you shouldn't be poor at this point. It's what I'm driving at. Peter Parker shouldn't be like struggling to trying to be able to you know be able to afford to live somewhere. And with running a company, he's able to make his own hours and come and go as he please without having to make an excuse why is he's running off somewhere. And being able to do the whole Tony Stark thing back in the day, where it's like Iron Man is his bodyguard, Peter Parker has Spider-Man as his bodyguard, and that kind of plays well in this particular case. And being a teacher, he can't just dip out every time he needs to be Spider-Man. He has to have a fixed set of hours. He has to be there at like 6 a.m., as you see in this arc. He has to be there at 6 a.m. And it's like, he can't just cut and run, every time he's needed. Being like a tech company guy, he can go as he pleases. So, in the next arc, he's like, stopping like a kidnapping and carjacking, and he's, teaching these kids about what is it? Teaching them about like atoms and like mathematical progression and like the human gene. Very sciencey stuff. Then the principal calls, after the bell rings, the principal calls in Peter to tell him about this like big donation given by Ezekiel. He sees Ezekiel there, and Ezekiel had a sit down with Peter and like had like a late lunch with him. And he goes to Peter and tell him this story about how, when he was a little bit younger, he went to on this archaeological kind of like research, found this temple. It's probably like in Africa, because like that's why Peter and like Black Panther like had a decent friendship, because the god Panther Bast is kind of friends with the Anansi, who's like the spider god of Africa. So these two kind of like had like it's kind of like two different parents being best friends, so their kids naturally kind of be best friends. They're friends, so that means you gotta be friends, kind of thing. And like Ezekiel goes over how like there's certain individuals who has like since dawn of time has this kinship to particular animal icons, and throughout the ages they battle their how they put it, like not natural predators, but it's like some kind of hold on, he's kind of like this totemistic force that is inherent with everybody. He tells Peter, like, the phrase "know a man by his enemies." Was kind of like balancing the scales, or just like how like in the Nolan trilogy, as Jim Gordon mentions about escalation. He points out like you got Captain America. He has his symbol and what he stands for. There has to be like a opposite effect, which you got like Red Skull and Zemo. Then you got like the X-Men and the mutants have to deal with other mutants such as Magneto to balance things out. Thor has Loki. You, on the other hand, have like a series of people who are pretty much like false, totems in a way, whereas like your totem comes from a pure source. to where like they on the other hand, are just naturally antagonistic to you because they're kind of jealous on like a total mystic level where they realize it or not, most likely not, they just feel like a natural, they see you as a natural enemy. So like you got like guys who take on these false, totems like an octopus, got a cat, a vulture, a rhino, a scorpion, a jackal, a lizard. So it's like all of them, like are like trying to level off against you. But then he takes him. He doesn't go too deep into his like origin, but you get to see a brief panel of like of what he went through, where it's like some kind of blood sacrifice. It seems like he got like kidnapped or something like that, and pinned, and go through this blood ritual, against this like a wall with like this like hieroglyphic spider on the wall, and like you probably get into a different whenever we see like Ezekiel again, he probably goes deeper into that. But you can see like a get a taste of like, yeah, he has to do like a blood ritual in order to that's how he got his spider powers. But then he takes Peter to his company to go in further details why he sought him out. He goes over about like there's these energy vampires, these inheritors, who goes after totems to kill them and steal their life force to sustain themselves. And of course, Ezekiel said he did a great job and make sure he kept himself under the radar, so he never been like sought out. So he shows Peter this bunker. It's made out of like 2 feet of steel with adamantium. There's pretty much like a self-sustaining bunker that could last him for a very long time, with all these like food and fresh water and like a toilet and everything like that. It's like all the works, everything he needs on his one bunker, safe away. No one will ever find him. But Peter's not with that. It's like he goes over about like great power comes great responsibility. Ezekiel doesn't understand any of that. He never had to deal with about that lesson. But Peter is like like wherever you're so freaked out about, I'm not gonna be too worried, because like I dealt with a lot of guys who had it out for me. I beat them all, or at least found our way to beat them. In the end, I came out on top. Not that he was gloating. It's just that he's at this point in his life where it's like he dealt with like several different kinds of enemies. Some definitely stronger than him, and he managed to come out on top. And he just has the confidence to know that he's not gonna hide away from bad guys, especially if they seeking him out specifically. They will try to cause mayhem just to bring him out anyway. So he'd rather not do that. So, because he doesn't want to repeat, and that's always been in his mind, in his subconscious, or not in his subconscious. It's always in the back of his mind somewhere, where it's like he refused to repeat that same mistake by deciding to step back or step away and not step in, and that because that will end up causing deaths that he doesn't want to be responsible for. So there's this like blazing fire going on in his building. Spider-Man comes in, say to people, then all of a sudden he gets like sucker punched hard and lands right inside of a car. And like, and Peter mentions like as I'm hitting up against this car, blood spewing out of my doggone mouth. And he mentions like, man, I never been hit that hard. Like I got hit by the Hulk. I got hit by Thor. I never been hit this hard before. And I call cap on that because like, even if that at some point in your history that you got hit by Thor and Hulk at least once in your history as Spider-Man, I doubt they was using their full power. Otherwise, you'd be a bloody smear. Your power level ain't as high as theirs. It will never be as high as theirs. Let's just put it like that. This guy is hitting you with everything he's got because he's intending to kill you. And you see Morlun, just like a very Victorian / modern vampire, black trench coat and everything like that. And then he just not saying anything. He just like kept on like walking and like trying to get at Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man's trying to fight him. He's trying to throw some punches. Ain't none like he just smirks. It's like it's like a teenager trying to like fight The Rock. It's not. It's like well toned that teenager might be, and if the kid's like a decent fighter, that's all well and good. He's probably gonna take on a decent amount of people himself if he like probably trained or whatever like that. But he's gonna get somebody on a different level than him. Then if he's like trying to fight someone like The Rock, Rock can just backhands his ass. That's how you're looking right now with Morlun and Spider-Man right now. Spider-Man fighting Morlun for the first time, an inheritor for the first time. And like he just like Morlun just palms him in the chest and he just goes flying back, and it's like you're not nothing. And Peter's trying to tell us like you're not going to monologue, telling you like why you hate me, you're not going to do any of that stuff. And it's like normally it's how these things kind of go. And then Morlun just says like, I like you, you're funny. And it's like it's very rarely that Peter's enemies even gives him that. Usually they say like you're kind of annoying, but Morlun's just like just just matter of factly is like I have no special desire to see you dead, but here's how this is going to happen. You'll run, I will pursue. I do not tire, I do not grow weary, I do not give up. You, on the other hand, will eventually, and I will find you. And as he mentioned later, it's like, as soon as I laid a hand on you, now he's like pretty much like a bloodhound. No matter where you go in the world, I will find you. Which, by the way, he could easily have found a way to like get off the planet. There's no way you can track him down off world. That'd be a little bit more difficult. But then like this kind of like sets Peter off. So he goes off and like just goes ham over Morlun, but none of this stuff is like really mattering to Morlun. He's just like just beelines at him and just like as Peter's trying to throw crap at him, beat him up, and it's like none's really having any effect. And so like Peter's just like, okay, fuck it, I'll just run away. He's trying to climb up the wall, and he just like punches his way. Morlun just punches his way on the side of the building and just climbs like really fast. Like holy fucking shit! It's like, he's just like, and it's like he's like, Peter's like, okay, I'm gonna swing on a couple other buildings away on top of the building, and it's like, okay, it's gonna take him a while to get to me, and then just give me the time to think. It was like, and all of a sudden, come like on the top of the roof, bursting through the roof door. Here goes Morlun tackling him off the side of the building. It's like, who the hell is this guy? It's like it's super fast. And like, he didn't give Peter any time to think. It's like and Peter manages to get away as Morlun's crashed into the ground, and like of course, Merlin's, trying to, toss things at him, and like, he catches a car, and you know, this give Merlin time to grab him by the throat, and it's like this awesome panel work where it's like he just starts drilling him in the, like, boom, 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 right into the chest, and it's breaking his ribs in the meantime. And like, Peter manages to slip away, and like, and decides, okay, he swings, very far away, and manages, all right, I'm gonna change my clothes. He doesn't know what I look like, so I can at least, get some, like, a break and think for a second. But like I mentioned before, now, once the moment that he first touched him, it's like it doesn't even matter if he changed clothes. He comes, and he finds Peter, and like Peter's like, okay, fuck it, I'll just change, back to my spider outfit, and it's like, go ham on this guy. But they crash into a restaurant, into this kitchen. Gas is filling up, and Morlun just lights a match, and like, Peter just makes it out before the whole place explodes, and like, like part of his back is smoldering, and since Morlun's like, all his nice little wardrobe is like completely, burnt off, he, calls in Dex, like, I need some new clothes. This only give him, like, this only buys him maybe like an hour of a respite, like 30 minutes to an hour maybe. And so, Peter runs to back to Ezekiel's office, and he's like, I need your help. And Ezekiel's like, I warned you. And it's like, and the bunker's not going to work anymore, because it was only going to work because Morlun hasn't touched you yet. He hasn't encountered you yet. So now this leaves the bunker useless. He's going to track you down even through here, and he's going to, find a way to get inside and, get you. So it's like, there's no point. And he's like asking Ezekiel, okay, you can help me. Like, with two of us against him, it's like, he says, it doesn't matter. Anybody who ever went up against these guys, they all end up dying. There's no point in fighting. And it's like, and you see, like, fires going on in the distance, and it's like, he's, like, he's trying to draw you out. And it's like you're going to be on your own. And Peter's like, it's not the first time. And he goes off because, like, he refuses to let people die, and instead, and if he has to do it alone, he will. And it kind of leaves, like, Ezekiel there to ponder his decision. And of course, like, Peter, trying to make sure he protects as many people as possible, he goes after Morlun, punches him, doing everything he can to, like, fight as hard as he could, throwing all these, like, weapons at him, and try to keep him, like, at a distance, but not too far to where he has to, like, cause mayhem just to draw Peter back. So he goes to this payphone. There used to be payphones in the world before cell phones were a thing, just so you guys know, in case you don't know what payphone is. Where he, put, some quarters in, tries to call up Mary Jane. She's not answering her phone call, and then he eventually just decides to, like, call Aunt May. Now, if you're wondering why he doesn't try to reach the Avengers or Fantastic Four, he mentions that, but they're are, like, not in, or he's probably handling, like, off-world affairs or whatever. But now I'm thinking about it, he should have some kind of, like, Avengers card or something. He's been part of the Avengers every once in a while. He could easily use that, but that's not part of the story. But you know what I mean. It's like, it's, each hero should have some kind of, in case they dealing with something on a whole nother level they cannot handle, that's causing, like a massive red alert for a hero. They should have something like a priority alert, like all hands on deck situation. Because this is like a omnibus kind of thing. This, volume 1. Because after this arc, this kind of ducktails into the whole event with the 9/11 and everything like that ordeal. But there's something like when I'm talking about like extreme level event kind of situation, you know, each hero should have something like that. That they're definitely outside of the league and they like running on like fumes and it's like, you know, what I'm saying, like, priority alert. They should have something like that. Spider-Man could have benefited from like, because you might need like someone on the level of Thor or Hulk to come in and like, get at this guy because Morland's no way close to strong enough to deal with Thor or the Hulk or Silver Surfer, that kind of stuff. Or at least getting Shield, because at this time Shield was still a thing. Again, at least Shield to like, put in some distance or offer some kind of like, slow him down, at least something. But he calls Aunt May. He's pretty much trying to call, Mary Jane and Aunt May just to, because he realized he might actually die in this. So he wants to at least give like at least, tell them like he's telling Aunt May like, I know I haven't been around. I know I haven't done much. I haven't been keeping my promises. And I just want to let you know that in case I don't tell you enough, I love you. And that kind of cryptic stuff really puts Aunt May in like a bit of a worry state. And this is Aunt May when she was actually, not like decrepit, but it's like he still like shows that she's like an old lady, and not like in recent stuff since Homecoming, where after Marissa Tomei, everybody's trying to make Aunt May since that point in the comics and TV shows and other iterations, like, oh, she gotta be relatively hot looking, because like ever since Marissa Tomei, like I felt like I shouldn't feel like I want Aunt May, because that feels weird. She gotta be like old, not like ancient, but she still gotta show she's of age. I mean, I don't want to say of age. I mean, like, she gotta have gray hair, in some parts. She can't be like supermodel Marissa Tomei. She can't be that hot. I always say that, but I'm just saying, it's like, Aunt May got to look like an old lady that you shouldn't have no sexual fixation for. But then, like, as soon as because he also had to call in to the school and let them know, like, because it's early in the morning, he's supposed to be in school, and it's like, it's kind of put like Joey in a bad mood, because it's like because he believed so much in like Peter Parker that like he's the one teacher that seems like he actually cares, but as soon as like you realize the guy's not here, and it kind of put him on like a bum state. But maybe he shows up in the other parts of the Volume 1 Omnibus, but not in this arc again. You'll never see Joey in this arc again. But it's kind of like a sad little state that we leave him in, to where he's like bummed out that, oh, this one guy I thought he cared doesn't bother to show up on his first day, or at least his second day. But it's just like he's trying to be responsible. You guys at least let them know that, hey, I'm not going to be able to come into work. And it's like, now it's like after he talked to our man, he's shaking. He's putting the phone on a hook, and his Morland's is standing right beside him, and he's telling him like, so like, I'm gonna go down swinging, and like he proceeds to like trying to like beat throwing wherever he can at Morland, and it's like throwing all he has at him as much as he can. None of it giving it to any effect on him. And they take this fight near a pier, and then that's when like Ezekiel shows up, and it's like, oh, thank God you're here. And it's like, and with a stunned look on Morland's face, oh, there's two of you, and like both Peter and Ezekiel are just beating the hell out of Morland in this point. Now he's starting to draw blood, because maybe in this case it's like each inheritor probably can take on one Spider-Man. But if they have to handle with like more than one, that's when like the odds are starting to stack against them. But it still slightly wasn't enough because like Ezekiel isn't like he didn't hone his Spider-Man skills to the point where he's like good at hand-to-hand combat, or at least have any kind of fighting experience. He utilized it for his like own interest of bettering his company and making a profit and does all that other stuff. And if you're curious, wondering how he did all that using Spider-Man powers, think of when you first met Peter Parker, and the first thing he wanted to do is monetize his gifts, but it just didn't end well for him. So he used it for like, fighting crime. Ezekiel decided to like use his gifts to like, corporate espionage kind of thing, like, spy on adversaries and know about stock tips and all the other stuff, and utilizing that to like, to utilize that to his own benefit to make him like a very like a rich businessman. But then like Morlun managed to get a hold of Ezekiel, and he takes like a bite out of his like back of his head. Now it's like he's not like digging into his head. It doesn't show that. If this was like a Max comic book run like Punisher Max, you probably will see blood and brains and stuff like that. But this is like energy vampire, so he's sucking like a bit of his life force. But Ezekiel's not from like a pure source, so it's only like as Ezekiel put it, like an appetizer. So Ezekiel kind of like passes out and falls in the water, and like he says, like, I tried, Peter, and he falls into the water. And it's, Morlun leaves Peter. Is like, they give me an appetizer. I'm kind of full right now, but I'll be back for you later. And Peter, like this monster, and he dives in the water and try to goes after Ezekiel, but it's like he can't find his body. So he rises out of the water and like sees that Ezekiel managed to at least give Peter a fighting chance once he finds Morlun's blood on the ground. He takes a sample, goes back home and runs through a microscope, and realizes he sees like all this like different genetics, and like from like all these different animals and even humans, and realize, okay, the reason he goes after these kind of totems is because like eventually his body breaks down, so he needs to essentially recharge by going after any one of these properties, and more specifically me. So Peter decides, okay, he gets a new suit, and he goes to this power plant, and he triggers as like a false alarm just to get everybody out of the building, and decides to make this synthesize this kind of like essentially radiation. He's poisoning himself in a way, because he realized, he doesn't believe this whole totem thing, at least not yet. But he theorized, okay, Ezekiel thinks like, okay, the spider chose me. It was already going to give me his powers. However, what Morlun doesn't realize, this particular spider was bombarded with radiation. So I have a little bit extra, which makes Peter Parker the most unique Spider-Man, out of all of them, in a way, because there's few other, spider folk that had like radiated spiders bite them too. But Peter Parker was like the prime one. He's like the prime unique Spider-Man. But he realized, okay, they're probably used to dealing with spiders, spider folk who had like a natural chosen bites, while none of them hardly any of them had to deal with radiation in their spiders. Mine had one. So what would happen if I had to increase that part in my bloodstream? So he synthesized like an injection, put it in him, which is aggravating. He mentions how like it's burning his insides. So Morlun tracks him down and decides to go after him. And as he's trying to feed, it like the radiation gets into Morlun cells, and it's like he starts like, like it hurts him to like a such a degree. It's like a pain is excruciating, and it's like, oh, get away from me! Ugh, where are you? And it's like, and then like Peter like, oh, I'm mad as hell, and it's like so, and then now he's got like a +2 radiation or something, and he starts beating the hell out of Morlun because like, and then to the point where Morlun is just like now it's like he's it's kind of like weakened to a point where he's now looking like very like, at first I thought it was a reptilian, but it looked like some kind of insectoid kind of like skin. And Morlun's begging like, look, I promise I'll leave, I won't come back, I won't bother you anymore, please don't kill me. And Peter sitting there pondering, it's like, okay, he could be lying, he could come back and he might bring help next time, but even if he's not lying, he could go to another he could find somebody else and end up killing them for their life force. So what should I do? Do I have to kill him? Oh my god, I might have to kill him. And then all of a sudden, Dex comes in with a gun and shoots Morlun dead, and he turns into ash, pretty much solving that issue. But it would have been, actually, I wouldn't say it would be nice, but it's like, this could set like, kind of like Man of Steel, which I still don't hold in a very high regard so far as like a Superman film. It's definitely better than like Superman 3 and 4, but still it's like putting like a hero who's refused to take a life, absolutely refused to take a life for any circumstance, be put in a position to where they might have to break that rule in this case. And it's like, I don't know, what if Peter Parker actually had to take one life, because technically he's a vampire, so maybe he's not actually alive in a traditional sense, so it wouldn't be like a thing that counts. But the problem was solved for him automatically. He tracks down Dex, and it's like Dex just tells him like, he hurt me, like it's like, I didn't want to do it, but he hurt me a lot. Because every once in a while you see Dex begging Morlun just to kill him, and it's like, later, but right now you got to do my, you help me with this. So it's Pierce tells him like, you never come back. If I ever see you again, I'll hurt you 1,000 times more. And Dex just runs away, singing like "Ding Dong, the Rich is Dead" kind of thing, which is, I don't think was ever really needed. But all that little event was over. He's like, comes home, takes off his stuff. He's beat to all hell, and like the first thing he want to do is use the freaking bathroom. And I think he probably grabbed a quick shower. I don't know. He doesn't look like he changed his bandages all that much, but he's just like, he just plops down on the bed and just, because he's been fighting for like 12 to like, I don't know, it's like nearly a couple of days without, just maybe like the few minutes of like, like a, not resting, but keeping like a few minutes of not fighting. But he hasn't like had like a solid rest for like, nearly a couple of days. He hasn't eaten, and like, like none of that. And it's funny because earlier in the arc, he mentions how like, because he wanted to just, unload on, something. That's why it's like, he mentions like, I can pretty much go from here to New Jersey without needing like any kind of rest or anything like that. And like, look how it comes full circle. Now it's like, now all he can do is just rest at this point. He doesn't want to do anything at this point. He just needs some sleep and heal. And that's when like May came over because she's worried about that cryptic message that Peter left her. And then she sees his Spider-Man costume laid out on the floor and him just beating all the hell. And this is how she, at least in this interpretation, how she finds out he's Spider-Man, and then the arc ends. But yeah, I mean, this is a this is like a pretty cool story, like an introduction to the inheritors, like a brief introduction of what they're capable of and what we'll see later in Spider Verse. But I think this probably sets the tone of May knowing Peter Parker is Spider Man. In other stuff, she already knew that kind of thing. But yeah, but this is like one of my favorite Spider Man arcs, and I'm glad like one of my favorite artists did the drawing because I can't see any other artists doing this because like I love this style for Spider-Man and of course Spawn as well. And I kind of wish like John Romita Jr. because I think he did some Daredevil as well, but I think like John Romita Jr. should do like I want to say do all the art. Like I get like do all the art. Like no, it's like but he should be like he's definitely on the same level as Jim Lee, but these two should really be like the number one go-tos for comic book art, in my opinion. There's other people that's good too, but they like very high tier. They know their stuff, man. And I just love their like interpretation of certain characters. But what do you think of Spider-Man Coming Home? That 5-issue arc. Let me know in the comments below what you thought, what you liked or disliked about this arc. Check it out if you haven't. Pretty sure you can like look it up because I go to like readcomics.com. That's where I go for my comics whenever I need to watch something. Read something because I can't buy every doggone comic, and especially anything new comes out, I can easily check it out and be brief on what's going on currently in comics. But yeah, I will see you guys next time. Like I said, it's probably gonna be I think I'll do a DC comic next. Then after that, it'll be like a Miles Morales comic. Don't know when the next because the next DC comic I'm going to do is probably either going to be at the end of the month or beginning of next month. But I'm going to try to do these, at least do these a couple of months in, at least once a month, especially since it's going to be light on video game walkthroughs for a while because they moved a lot of stuff that I'm looking forward to like next year. I think God of War Ragnarok is still coming out the end of this year. I don't know. We'll find that out later. But there's a Xbox Bethesda conference in June. Maybe they'll show some new stuff that, a specific date for a lot of these games. So look forward to the discussion video about that, the day after that comes out, because that comes out on a Sunday, the June 12th. But yeah, I will see you guys next time. Oh, by the way, all through the month of May, I'm still covering like the Star Wars movie reviews and like TV show reviews. All the way into like the middle of June is probably when I get everything wrapped up, including the Obi-Wan series. But all through the month of May, I will have like a handful of movies dedicated to moms for Mother's Day. Then June, I have a handful of movies dedicated for dads for Father's Day. So look forward to those throughout those months. And I think I'll make that a thing each year. Same way I do with like Halloween and for the month of October, as well as Christmas throughout like November and primarily December, but every once in a while, like I get to jump on it in November while sprinkling in Thanksgiving stuff. But anyway, I will see you guys later. Take care.